Hello chess friends and welcome to Out of Chess channel and welcome to the round 5 of the FIDE candidates in 2022. The derby of this round was of course the game between Hikaru Nakamura and Jan Nepomniachtchi. So this was quite a dynamic game, and it's a very important game for the potential outcome of the super event, because in this game Hikaru had even the opportunity in some variations to take the lead after round 5. So if he wins now, for instance, his game against Nepo, and maybe Caruana loses against Rapport, he could be the leader after round 5. So this is really already a heated up stage of the tournament, and I'm really looking forward to watch also the continuation, because who knows what will happen, because in this event basically everyone can beat everyone. So that's why it's really so far one of the best tournaments that I have watched in my life. So let's see now the round 5. We're starting now with, as I said, Hikaru Nakamura versus Jan Nepomniachtchi. So Hikaru opened with the move e4, Nepo played e5, knight to f3, and then from knight to f6 we have the Russian game. The Petroff defense is on the board. This is really a popular opening by Nepo. He played it very often, and he is really the master of this line. So here from knight to f6 we have the normal idea: knight to e5, d6, knight to f3, knight takes e4, and after move d4, d5 we have bishop to d3, the so-called classical attack. And that's, I think, the only downside I think about the Petroff defense, that this knight is a little bit exposed on e4. It's of course very well placed, it's in the center of the board, but now in the near future white will try to break this support, this d5 pawn. So white is continuing the pressure with c4, knight to c3, so it's trying to deflect this pawn from the defense of the knight. So the knight is the only, I think, structural weakness in the Petroff defense. So after move bishop to d3 we have knight to c6, we have kingside castling, bishop to e7, and now Hikaru continues with his plan. c4 is of course a beautiful idea. So we have knight to b4, which transposes now into the so-called Qxe1 variation. You don't want to lose your powerful bishop on d3, so that's why here bishop to e2 is a normal move here by Hikaru Nakamura. So we have kingside castling, and now knight to c3. So you see, still the plane remains. We're still challenging the knight on e4. In the continuation we have bishop to f5. So here of course Nepo supports further the knight. So in the beginning the Petroff is really a battle for the e4 square. So we have a3 by Hikaru. We have knight takes c3, so first you have to react here, b takes c3, and now again the knight moves to c6. So we have rook to e1, rook to e8. Nepo immediately competes on the e file. That's how we play chess in the correct way. You're not allowing your opponent to take any advantages on some file, on some open files, or maybe potentially open files, or maybe semi-open files. So now rook to e8 is of course a normal idea. So in the continuation, rook to a2, and this move I really like by Hikaru. He's announcing here really sort of a battery on the e file. So he's trying to double up rooks on the e file, and then with these 3 pawns versus 1 pawn in the center, he could have really a decent game. Although the evaluation, computer evaluations here is about equal, but I kind of like more white's position, I have to say it, because it's much easier and more natural to play this position from white's perspective. I think the ideas are much clearer here for white, although we should not always watch just the computer evaluation. We should also watch what kind of a feeling you have sort of in the position. I really love now white's position already. So in the continuation we have bishop to f8. So here Nepo is saying, I will immediately trade off at least one of these rooks on the e file if something gets cleared. We have c takes d5, queen to d5, and after move c4 we have reached now the so-called hanging pawn structure, which is now these 2 connected pawns in the center of the board. They're cut off from any other pawn, so you see they're not connected to the f pawn, they're not connected to the a pawn. They're called the hanging pawns, and many times in the hanging pawn structures this can be an advantage, but it can be also disadvantage. So you see, now you can be the judge of this position. You can say if it's an advantage or disadvantage, because now after move c4 Nepo probably made his first inaccuracy. He played now the move queen to e4, so he got in front of the rook. That's, I think, not a huge problem that he got in front of the rook. Actually what he should have played is here queen to d6, and this queen to d6 is a little bit teasing move because the hanging pawn structure is still challenged here. So we could maybe try some rook to d8 ideas, continue the pressure, and whatever white does, if white for instance plays c5, that's the beauty about this move queen to d6, then still you can play a blockade it with queen to d5, or if something like d5 happens, okay, we can play knight to e5. But now this hanging pawns, this pawn structure c4 d5 is not so powerful anymore. So that's why I would love more this position after move queen to d6. We're staying with the queen. The queen is perfectly fine here. The queen cannot be attacked by the rooks, by the minor pieces, but you have to prove now your pawns with your hanging pawn structure. Now black could attack them immediately. So as I said, maybe here really queen to e4, the first inaccuracy by Nepo, and he's getting in front of the rook. That's also something that it's worth to say. So it's quite an unpleasant game now already for Jan Nepomniachtchi. So now Hikaru plays bishop to f1, but this move is a little bit too rushed because Nepo has of course the opportunity to retreat here to g4. What Hikaru should have played, maybe it would be much more accurate, but of course this is just a computer line that I'm showing you. h3 is really beautiful. Now you have the same idea with bishop to f1, but the queen doesn't have anymore the g4 square to escape, so it's now really an unpleasant game for the queen. So here, as I said, maybe slightly better position. So here after move bishop to f1, Nepo goes queen to g4. We have now h3, but now after rook to e1, Nepo found a way how to at least simplify the game by playing again queen to e4. But still nothing is solved here for Nepo, because that's the beauty about this move, rook to a2. Now this rook can be included into the attack, and that's exactly what happened. Rook to e2, and look at this, the queen is almost trapped, sort of. It's really wild. We're now in move 20, and Hikaru Nakamura already challenges Nepo's queen here. And we have to also say a very important thing about this game. Nepo had always good time control, but Hikaru Nakamura was already about 30 minutes on the clock, which was really incredible. He used 1 hour already to get to this position, and I think the time problems that Hikaru had were his main issue, because he has a clear much better position here. The evaluation is 1.3 here, almost 1.5 for white, which is really wild. When we watch now the top grandmaster games, many times even an evaluation like this was simply enough for one strong player. But the time problems that Hikaru had, I think, were his main issue. Now after rook to e2, okay, we have here queen to d3, we have rook to b2 again, the queen gets endangered, and here Nepo again retreats to e4. Nepo realized that he has a worse position, so he is probably satisfied with the draw. So again, rook to e2, almost 3-time repetition, but after rook to e3, now queen to b1 was played by Nepo. We have now d5 here by Hikaru. The knight has to move. Still you cannot take. Rook takes e7 because bishop to e7, queen to e7, but also you lose the bishop on c1. So we have knight to d2. Again, the queen gets more and more endangered, but still there is a good square for the queen. We have queen to a1, we have knight to b3, and almost, but it's only almost, the queen got trapped. But now finally Nepo has this only square here for the queen, queen to f6. So you don't want to play, of course, something like queen to a2, then again to get challenged, and you could really lose the queen. Knight to d4 could happen, and the queen could be trapped. So with ideas, of course, rook to e2, and the bishop is hanging. So again, also the knight is hanging. Now the queen is not attacking anymore the bishop, so too many tactical problems here for black. So that's why finally Nepo get out of this mess and played queen to f6. Still, it's of course not an optimal square for the queen. Still, the queen can be endangered with bishop to d2, bishop to c3, but at least Nepo has some time to regroup and settle down in this position. So in the continuation, bishop to d2. So now Hikaru continues with his plan to attack further the queen. Black is here really a lack of development. The bishop is not good, the knight is good, not good, the rook is not playing in the game. So now Hikaru has to prove his position. But again, I'm pointing out Hikaru Nakamura was simply low on clock. So really wild stuff. So knight to g6, and now comes maybe really the first really inaccuracy here by Hikaru. He found, I think, a weird plan. He should have played bishop to c3. The idea is clear. For instance, if the queen gets on g5, we can play here g3 immediately. We're not allowing the knight on f4. Even if knight to f4 happens, you still can kick away the queen with h4, queen to g6, and now look at this, bishop to b4 is going to happen. The idea is clear. We want to get our rook on the 7th rank, and here it would be a destroying position, I think, for black. Here white should be much better. Here if rook to e7 happens, it's a perfect position. Then afterwards we can play knight to d4, and I think black is tactically losing the game. The queen is again out of game, so I'm not seeing good ways here for white to for black to make progress. But as we said here, even if you try after bishop to c3, you can also play, instead of this move, queen to g5, maybe queen to d8, but it's not getting better. I think again the rook is out of game, and now the only open file is in Hikaru's possession, so Hikaru again would have a much better position. But unfortunately for Hikaru, he found, I think, the wrong plan. Bishop to c3, as we said, much better. This is not losing for Hikaru. It's not a huge problem. Still, white is better here because of the attack on the e file, but this was really unnecessary because here Nepo played b6. We have here knight to c6, and here bishop to d7, so this knight is a little bit misplaced. In the continuation we have bishop to c3. This was a little bit too slow because now here Nepo had queen to d6, although maybe queen to g5 now would be very interesting, because after rook to g3, actually Nepo could stay in the attack. He could also play queen to h5. Look at this. This will be now an interesting position. Actually, the engine likes even slightly better here black's position. Bishop to h5, bishop to e2. You still can stay even here on h4, but look at this now. Maybe knight to f4 could happen. Bishop to d6, bishop takes h3 is always a threat. So finally, I think Nepo could regroup and build a beautiful attacking formation. I'm not saying this is winning for black, but we have to say here Hikaru was around 6 minutes on the clock, so it would be move 32, so he had to play still 8 more moves in order to get some additional time. We have to really say this was maybe Nepo's choice to take over in the game, but he played also after move, let's go back, knight to c6, he played after move bishop to c3 also a quite passive move, queen to d6, and in the continuation here Hikaru played bishop to b4, queen to f6, and after a couple of perpetuals both of them agreed to a draw, which was really wild. In my opinion, Nepo should have pushed here a little bit more, maybe to play queen to g5 finally and hope for the best. I'm not saying, as I said, that this should be winning, but under time pressure, who knows, maybe Hikaru would play a slight inaccuracy, maybe mistake or even a blunder. I'm not sure, but it was, I think, Nepo's really great opportunity to maybe also win this game here with the black pieces. So as we said, this was the crucial mistake here by Hikaru. Knight to a5 here with the obvious bishop to c3. He had good chances. The evolution is here +1 for white, so this should be much better. The queen doesn't have good squares now. The queen, even if the queen gets here, but as we said, with bishop to b4 you lose probably the battle here on the 7th rank, and this should be then much better for white. So I'm not saying, as I said, this is simply top grandmaster chess. Many times that's just a slight inaccuracy causes you the game, but here Nepo should have, I think, sensed the game more, that he had the opportunity to somehow I don't know, play a couple more aggressive moves and then to make something out of it. But okay, still Nepo is in the lead, we have to say it. He's sole leader in this tournament. If he, I would always agree, I think, to play a draw with the black pieces against Hikaru Nakamura. This is not such a huge problem, but it would be very interesting to see what would happen after potential queen to g4 afterwards here by Nepo. So really interesting game. Congratulations also to Hikaru. I think Hikaru is getting better in the tournament. We have to say he had a tough start, but now Hikaru is playing much more stronger. If he manages to somehow get this better time control, he could be really even one of the favorites of the super event. So it's really beautiful tournament so far. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more games from this event, check out my coverage so far. Here are some links of some games that we have analyzed, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.